Alright. So something I don't see a whole lot of YouTubers doing is um a MCU multi-versal timeline. I've done it like 3 or 4 times already, but I've gotten a few new titles since the last time I did this. So let's get into this. We start off, as always, with the MCU timeline on the sacred timeline with Captain America: The First Avenger. This is set primarily in World War II, like 1940s, like 44, 45 thereabouts. And like I said, this one happened on the sacred timeline, or the 616 universe, their timeline. And I'm actually gonna scooch this over here a little bit so I can stack the titles I've already talked about on the edge of the table here. The next two events that occur are still in the 40s. We have 1945 and 46, or 46 and 47, with Agent Carter seasons 1 and 2. And this one takes place a year after Captain America ends, which, I mean, it technically ends in 2011 with him waking up in modern day. But as far as the main World War II storyline ends, is approximately 1945. This is about a year later in 46. And then this one is a year after that in 1947, California. And then jumping ahead to the 1960s, we have X-Men First Class. Sorry, this is a trilogy case. I don't have an individual case for X-Men First Class, but I mean I used to, but I got rid of it when I got these, or when I got this one. If I get a 4K for X-Men First Class, I'll still retain this case and the 4K case for First Class, but here we travel to the 10,005 universe, and we basically go through the origin story of Mystique, Beast, Magneto, and Professor X himself. And we see, and I don't think Quicksilver's in First Class. I'm pretty sure he debuts in Days of Future Past. So yeah, there we go. We'll talk about those two titles later. I have actual cases for Apocalypse and Days of Future Past that we'll talk about. And a little side note, I'm going to say the universe designation for the movies that I know the designation of, like 616 and about 10,005. Those are the only two that I think that I know the designation for. I don't remember the designation for the Miles Morales universe in Into and Across the Spider-Verse. Isn't it like 1615 or something? But anyway, I don't know for sure what Miles Morales' universe is. I don't know what Venom's universe designation is, or Craven. I'm pretty sure his is the same as Venom's. I don't know Tobey Maguire's or Andrew Garfield's number designations, but I know one's the Raimi-verse, and the other is the TASM-verse. TASM stands for The Amazing Spider-Man. With that in mind, let's get back into this we're going to stick with the 10,005 universe timeline here. We're going to jump ahead to the 1970s, and we have two cuts of X-Men Days of Future Past. We have the Rogue cut and Days of Future Past, the theatrical cut. Also, another side note, for movies that have different cuts like this, both will occur and be treated as a separate title. because they have stuff added to them. So with both of these movies, both the theatrical and the Rogue cut, you have, it starts in like, I want to say the early 2020s for a post-apocalyptic future with the Sentinel robots being able to adapt thanks to Mystique's powers. And then you go back to the 1970s with Nixon as president, and we get introduced to Quicksilver, who has a really cool slow motion sequence that he does, where he basically makes a lot of prison guards look ridiculous and beat themselves up. Fun hijinks, stuff like that. Professor Xavier doesn't have his powers for a good chunk of the movie because he takes a serum to be able to walk, and it affects his abilities to read people's minds and communicate with them and whatnot. Wolverine is sent back because he's the only one that could mentally make the journey, because his mind could heal itself as fast as it was torn apart, going back decades. In the Rogue cut, it's exactly what it sounds like. They bring back Rogue because at one point, even in the theatrical version, Wolverine sees Stryker, freaks out a little bit, and accidentally slashes Kitty Pryde, who sent him back in time to begin with. So Rogue takes her power, or like borrows Kitty's power to send or to keep Logan in the past, or he would have had a much darker history moving forward. And then also in the 70s, I want to say like 1979, yes, we have Captain America and Captain America 2 Death Too Soon. One thing I can say is that the first one isn't all that good. For one thing, they botched the origin story. It's not set in World War I or World War II. He's actually a legacy hero where his dad was Captain America, and he's like, okay, now that I have all these powers, all this like the Captain America powers, I want to take up the mantle that my dad vacated when he died. And he doesn't even get the super suit scene here until the end of the first movie. I've heard that he wears it for the duration of Death Too Soon, but I've only seen about 5 minutes of that movie. I know it has Christopher Lee from Lord of the Rings and Star Wars in it, but I haven't seen enough of it to have an actual opinion. Set in like 1984, we have X-Men Origins Wolverine, and I really only have a couple of problems with this movie. Both of them have to do with Deadpool. Like a lot of other people, I'm not super fond of the idea that they stitch his mouth shut, because I thoroughly enjoy the Deadpool trilogy that we have, and he doesn't talk in the end of this one. So I would make it so he could talk, like maybe when he shows up with his mouth stitched shut, maybe have one of Wolverine's strikes accidentally like slash his mouth open so he can actually talk again. I would keep the teleportation. I would keep the laser vision, because he teleports in the video game. And I would make it so his swords are still handheld and not Wolverine claw middle finger type katana swords. I thought that was like, yeah, that's dumb. I don't think the human arm is long enough to hide katanas inside them. So I would make it so he still has handheld katanas, and I would give him the official Deadpool costume at the end, instead of just having the heat vision create the mask pattern on his actual face. And I thought that was a little corny. But still in the 80s, with 1983, we have X-Men Apocalypse. And really the only qualm I have with this movie is how they handle Apocalypse himself initially when he first shows up. There's a scene where he touches a TV, someone asks him what he's doing, and he just says, learning. That's pretty dumb. I don't like that. That's the only thing I don't really like about this one all that much. The rest of the movie seems pretty good if you just take out that one thing. So, yeah. Let's see here. Set in 1986, it looks like. We have Howard the Duck. This one's not super relevant to the timeline. You could skip this one and not miss anything. It's interesting that this is George Lucas. His follow-up to Star Wars was Howard the Duck. And if you want to watch something that's extremely cheesy and fun to laugh at, go ahead and put this on. Otherwise, feel free to omit it from your timeline. Howard the Duck himself doesn't even show up until Guardians of the Galaxy Volumes 1, 2, 3, and What If. So, I mean, and it's not technically this version either, because he's in the 616 universe in all those other projects except for What If. Still set in the jumping ahead to the 90s, somewhere in the 1990s, we have, I'm going to talk about as the entire series. I do not have the entire series, but I'm going to talk as if I do have the entire series. I have quite a bit of it, and that is the Spider-Man animated series from 1990-something, from the 90s. This Spider-Man cartoon is currently in my top 3 favorite Spider-Man cartoons of all time. It actually would be number 2, behind Ultimate Spider-Man with Drake Bell voicing Spider-Man, and ahead of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man in the What If animation MCU style type thing they did. Which I'm looking forward to a second season of, by the way. Same with X-Men 97. Speaking of X-Men 97, at this point in the timeline, it would be about 1992, give or take, and 1993. So it's time to watch X-Men, the animated series, seasons 1 and 2. And you got a Days of Future Past arc here. You got Night of the Sentinels, Enter Magneto. The Phoenix Saga is in the second season here, with 5 parts to it. Yeah. After this, you would watch season 3, set in, I believe, 1993 or 1994, something like that. And then you would watch. Oops, I just realized I did this a little bit out of order here. In the year 1990 itself, you would have to watch The Death of the Incredible Hulk. I've not actually seen this yet. I do have it, obviously. The case for it is right here. But I have not seen The Death of the Incredible Hulk. Is it even possible for Hulk to die? I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe it is. Who knows? Apparently, this version of the Hulk can, in fact, die. But, yeah. Then, set in 1994, we have Iron Man, the animated series. And I have seen a couple episodes of this. It's pretty good. There are a few things that I'm not too fond of, like, for example, Howard Stark is not Howard Stark. I think it's Walter Stark for Iron Man's dad, and that seems a little kooky. But anyway. And then, let's see. In also 1990, so I need to put this a little differently as well. Actually, I can just leave this one where it is. In 1990, we see Darkman 1. In 1994, which we just talked about with Iron Man, we have Darkman 2, The Return of Durant. And in 1995, which we'll get to in just a second, actually. Also in 1994, I think, is X-Men Season 3. I don't have X-Men Season 3, but I do have X-Men Season 4 set in 95, or in 1995, I believe. Yeah, because Season 5 was 96, then X-Men 97 obviously is 1997. So, in 1995, we have X-Men Season 4 here, followed by Darkman 3, Die, Darkman, Die. Okay. And then, I think also set in 1995, correct me if I'm wrong, is both Dark Phoenix and Captain Marvel 1. It says from the 1990s, but it doesn't specify a specific year. But it was 8 years after, I believe, 83. Or no, 8 years after, like, 93. 8. It's in the 90s. We'll just leave it at that. It's in the 90s, and I have it taking place before or at approximately the same time as Dark Phoenix. So there you go. I can now set these over here. Let's see. Set in 1998, we have Blade 1. I think. Yeah. Blade 1. That's early 2000s, okay. So we'll get back to that in just a second. In case you're unaware, Blade is a day-walking vampire who goes around killing regular vampires. Because the regular vampires are the bad guys. Obviously. Because he's a superhero killing bad guys. We'll get back to Blade in a second. Kicking off the 21st century with the year 2000, we have X-Men 2000 here. I'll set that there. And in this one, you get introduced to Wolverine for the first time, as well as the live-action, or the first live-action iteration of the X-Men from the 10,005 universe. You got Storm, Professor X, Cyclops. No Beast yet, but we have Storm, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, Professor Xavier, going up against Magneto and his Brotherhood of Mutants, which in this one are Toad, Mystique, and Sabretooth. Good movie. And then, oops. Okay, I'll have to do a little side note here. Set in 2002, we have Blade 2, which continues the story of Blade on his vampire-killing crusade, as well as Spider-Man 2002 with Tobey Maguire in the Raimi-verse, which is what I'm going to call the designation of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man universe, the Raimi-verse. And then in the Sony Spider-Man less universe, we have in 2003 set Madam Web. It's an okay movie. I would love to see the version that Dakota Johnson was pitched, because it sounds awesome, and I'm pretty sure she's going to make it so that they release that version, and I hope she does, because that would be cool. Let's see, set in 2004, we have Blade Trinity, which we'll get back to shortly, because there isn't a alternate cut, but I haven't watched the alternate cut. I don't know how different it is to this version, other than it being going from rated R to not rated. That's all I know about Blade Trinity. unrated cut is that it's also slightly longer. Also in 2004, though, we have Spider-Man 2 and 2.1. This is an extended cut version. If you're wondering why I didn't show a case for Spider-Man 1, is because I have a trilogy 4K case for the Spider-Man, or for the Raimi-verse Spider-Man movies. And then I have a DVD case for the extended cut of Spider-Man 2. I don't have individual cases for Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. Same with Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 in the TASMverse. I don't have individual cases for those anymore either. So, both versions of this movie would play out pretty much the same way, except one would be slightly longer and have more critical information added back into it. And they'd both be set in 2004 because it's the same movie, obviously. This version was released in 2007 alongside Spider-Man 3, though. So, but it's still set in 2004. So there you go. Let's see here. When does this one take place? Okay, so taking a step back for a second, we have X-Men 2 set in 2003, I believe, in the 10,005 universe. This one introduces Nightcrawler and Lady Deathstrike. As you can see on the case here, we have Nightcrawler up here and Lady Deathstrike here. She has adamantium fingernails that she uses to attack, as you can kind of see on the case. That needs to go below Spider-Man 2 because it's 2003, not 2004. I believe also set in 2003 is Daredevil and Elektra, their movies. Actually, I think Elektra's is set in 2005, which is where I have this placed. But in any case, Daredevil, set in 2003. Daredevil's a blind lawyer who masquerades as the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, New York, and is a superhero. And Elektra was kind of his sidekick / lover there for a little while. Or he loved her type thing. And then she had her own spinoff after her presumed death in Daredevil, so it's like, surprise, I'm not dead type thing. Okay, also in 2003, wow, this needs to go below Spider-Man 2 as well. Spider-Man 2 is 2004. In 2003, we have what I call the Incredible Hulk 1, because this one ends in Brazil, and the 2008 Edward Norton-led Hulk movie begins in Brazil, which makes it feel like it's Hulk 2 or Incredible, or just the Incredible Hulk. But this one would be the Incredible Hulk 1, and the Edward Norton would be Incredible Hulk 2. So we technically have gotten an Incredible Hulk 2. It's just masquerading as the Incredible Hulk 1. If they are in fact designed to be sequels, or a sequel of the 2003 version right there. In 2004, jumping ahead a year again, we have either version of The Punisher with Thomas Jane. Both versions are highly enjoyable. The Russian guy with the striped shirt, kind of see him on the back of the case here. His appearance is still just as zany and random, and it's like, where did this guy come from, as it is in the theatrical cut, so it is in the extended one. It adds 17 minutes onto the original runtime, and looking at the runtimes, that does check out. 123 becomes 140 if you add 17. I can sometimes do math. Yay me. Personally, I like the extended cut a little bit more, but yeah. And then let's see, pretending to be set in 2007 this time around, or not? Well, back to 2004, I guess. Well, we have Blade Trinity, not rated version. I'm not sure why it isn't rated. It just isn't. And in that one, you have Blade coming up against Dracula, and that's cool. And then we're going to talk about both the theatrical cut and the extended cut for this next movie, and that is Fantastic Four from 2005, set in 2005, I think, in an unknown designated universe. It's just their universe. I'm not sure if it has a specific designation. This one adds 20 minutes onto the runtime, which means it was initially 105 minutes because it's now 125. Both versions are really good, and Kevin Feige worked on it, which is interesting. And it's a good introduction origin story type thing, both for the title characters and Doctor Doom. We'll get to Rise of the Silver Surfer a little bit later on in the video, but first, set in 2006, allegedly, I think, is X-Men The Last Stand, or X-Men 3, whatever you want to call it. And this one kind of does the Dark Phoenix storyline first, and then they do it again in X-Men Dark Phoenix. They don't do it particularly well in either version, but I think this one is better made. It had better production value. And is a little clearer of a storyline as well. I just noticed this case has a misprint on the rating information. Interesting. It's the words for why it's rated what it is are slightly too far to the left. Interesting. I didn't notice that before. Let's see. The next two movies, I decided to include these two. They're going to be two of the four only animation titles that I talk about that are feature-length movies and not TV shows, and that is Ultimate Avengers 1 and 2. And the reason I decided to include these in this multiversal timeline is because, to my knowledge, these movies contain the first time that we see a black Nick Fury, and it's set in 2006, so we hadn't seen Samuel L. Jackson become Nick Fury before these two movies came out, and of course they made him look like Samuel L. Jackson in this on purpose to be like, hey, guess who's going to be Nick Fury in the MCU type thing. So yeah, Ultimate Avengers 1 and 2. I'm not sure when they actually take place, so I'm going to say that it's set in 2006. They're in the Ultimates universe, which I think is also the same one that Miles Morales is set in. So there's that. And then in 2007, we have the events of either the theatrical or the extended cut of Ghost Rider with Nicolas Cage as Johnny Blaze. I think he does a really good job. Trying to think if Idris Elba's in this one or if it's the next one. I think it might be the next one. Anyway, good movie, I think. I like the extended one a little bit more than the regular version. It seems to add a little more, something to the mix. We've already talked about Spider-Man 1 and 2, so the purpose of showing this particular case is for Spider-Man 3 here, set in 2007, I think. And This marks the first time in live action that we're going to see Venom in this multiversal timeline, and they didn't really know what to do with Venom in this because Sam Raimi was adamant not to have Venom in this movie, and the studio kind of forced him to put him in there. He didn't want to use Venom, and so he didn't know how to treat the character. And so he handled the black suit Spider-Man just fine, but when he became Venom, when the symbiote switched from Peter Parker to Eddie Brock, it kind of fell apart a little bit. I still thoroughly enjoy Spider-Man 3, but yeah. And then let's see here. Jumping back a little bit to 2006, we have the events of Blade the series. This one has a new actor playing Blade. It's not Wesley Snipes. What is this guy's name, actually? Does it ever say who the actor is? No, but the entire show released from June to September of 2006. So I don't know who the actor portraying Blade is right here. I don't know his name, but the show I think is really, really good and warrants being watched in a Marvel multiversal timeline. So there you go. I'm gonna move this over to here. Next, still set in 2007, I think. No, 2008. Okay, so moving up to 2008, which means I need to grab the Iron Man 1 case and 2 cases out of this trilogy pack here in a second, is Spectacular Spider-Man. This show is my fourth favorite Spider-Man show. My least favorite is Spider-Man Unlimited. I thought that was really cheesy and weird, with Counter Earth and the nanotech suit. And the one right below this one would be the 2017 Spider-Man cartoon. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and grab Iron Man 1 and 2 here, since we're going to talk about those in just a second. But first, we have 3 other titles to consider. One of them is Wolverine and the X-Men. This, I believe, has a Hulk vs. Wolverine thing in here. So that's pretty cool. And between X-Men Evolution, which takes place 2000, 2001, and 2003 for some reason. I forgot to mention that earlier. I don't have any of it. But this one is set, I think, in 2008. I could be wrong about that. And in fact, I probably am wrong about that. I honestly do not know when this is actually set to take place in. So I'm just going to pretend that it takes place in 2008 like the release here is. Without a sure knowledge of whether that is true or not. And we're going to move on. It's a good show. Good show. I like it more than X-Men Evolution. I thought it did a better job portraying Wolverine in particular. And then for this case, we're going to talk about Rise of the Silver Surfer, which backs up to 2007. My bad. I didn't realize that I had this in the wrong position. Anyway, set in 2007, we have Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. The only thing I don't like about Rise of the Silver Surfer is that Galactus was a stupid storm cloud. That is so dumb and lazy. That's the only thing I don't like about Rise of the Silver Surfer here. I thought the Silver Surfer was really good. I thought the Fantastic Four themselves were really good. I almost said X-Men just then. And I thought Doctor Doom was handled pretty well. But yeah. Did not like how they had Galactus. Now we have the real Galactus, or proper, like, giant humanoid Galactus in Fantastic Four: The First Steps. I don't personally have that movie in my collection, so I'm not going to be including it in this timeline. but I believe it kicks off Phase 6 and is set in the 1960s, so we would have already talked about it anyways. Anyways, moving on. With a new cast, kind of a reboot, kind of a sequel, we have set in 2008, Punisher Warzone right here. My personal favorite of the two most recent Punisher movies. I didn't give the Dolph Lundgren version a chance because the copy I had did not work at all. Like it wouldn't play, so I couldn't watch it because I put it in and it just said error reading disc the entire time. I was like, seriously, I want to check this out. Why am I not able to check this out? And I don't really feel a need to get another copy of it because I've heard it's pretty bad. Okay, now, taking place one after the other, I think 2008 and 2009, we have Iron Man 1 and 2. Iron Man kicked off the MCU as far as the release schedule was concerned. This was the first one they made, or first movie the MCU made. And so it doesn't have the weight of the entire MCU on its shoulders like a bunch of the newer projects do. And Iron Man 2, I have a lot of fun with Iron Man 2. I kind of wish that he knew Whiplash was still alive for the duration of the movie so he could be like, oh, I need to actively try and find this guy because he's the big bad of the movie. And it's like he forgets that he exists because he must have heard of an explosion in his jail cell or something and assumed, oh, Whiplash is dead. Okay, we're all safe here. They weren't. We'll get back to that in just a second. Set in, I believe, 2009 as well, we have 2008's The Incredible Hulk, or as I like to now think of it, The Incredible Hulk 2, given that the Eric Bana Hulk takes place or ends in Brazil, and this one starts in Brazil. Makes me think that this is a sequel to the Eric Bana Hulk movie, when it's not been confirmed if that's the case, but speculation and deductive reasoning would suggest that is the case. And this is a much better Hulk movie than the 2003 version. One thing I did like about the 2003 version, however, is that you could tell that the madder Hulk gets, the larger and stronger he became. Like, he visibly got larger as he got more mad, which I thought is awesome. This version and other versions since haven't done that, and it's kind of a crying shame. I'm just going to set this off to the side as well for right now until we get to post Avengers, which is just 2 titles away. Oh wait, I also need to grab Thor 1, the first Thor movie here. Hold on. Set in, I believe, 2011, because Avengers 1 takes place in 2012. And in that, Nick Fury says, last year, Earth had a visitor who had a grudge match that leveled a small town. Thor. Set in 2011, we have Thor. Kicking off 2012, before the events of the Avengers here, we have Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance and The Amazing Spider-Man 1 over in the TASMverse. This one's 616 universe. I don't know the universal designation for this one. We'll just call it the Marvel Knights universe, because it says Marvel Knights on the back of the case. And that's about all I know about it, is that I have seen it. I just don't know the universe designation, so I'm going to call it the Marvel Knights universe. I believe Punisher Warzone is also in that same universe, but the two characters do not cross paths. They're just in the same universe. So it's not a shared universe technically. Like, they don't cross paths at all, but it's kind of the same universe. So, you can kind of intuit that they may have crossed paths off screen. But anyway, Thor, set in 2011. the MCU was still trying to find its footing at this point, financially speaking. And you can tell because some of the movie, the camera's tilted like this, so you have to be like, huh, to look at it properly. And that's a little annoying, but that's okay. It's not a huge catastrophe or anything like that. It's just a little side note. And back in 2012 here, we have the Avengers. Now the Avengers have assembled. A quick side note, Hawkeye is introduced in Thor, and Black Widow is introduced in Iron Man 2. The rest of the Avenger team has had their own solo movie at this point, with Hulk, Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man all having their own movie in the MCU 616 universe at this point in time. Now, all of those different characters meet and team up against Loki, the villain from the first Thor movie, who did a phenomenal job. And at the time this came out, from what I've heard, Tom Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth were what you call no-name actors. There's like, who are these guys? Why are they leading your movie? Now obviously both of them have star power from being in the MCU, and I think that's largely credited to the Avengers here, and not so much the individual or not so much Thor 1 per se. And then let's see, where's that? Okay, so I forget which one happens next, Iron Man 3 or Thor the Dark World. We're gonna pretend that Thor the Dark World happens next, because Thor the Dark World, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and Iron Man 3 all kind of take place around the same time. And actually, I think this one does happen first. So we're going to talk about this. Set in what I believe it would be 2014 or 2013, because this is Christmas 2013. So this would be earlier in the year 2013. We have Thor the Dark World, kind of a bland, boring movie with a forgettable villain that has no unique qualities among any of the other Dark Elf characters, other than Curse, because Curse is awesome. He's this like huge hulking Dark Elf guy. Actually, I don't think all the Cursed people are Dark Elves, so I might have to take that back. But anyway, moving on. I think technically Winter Soldier would be beginning of 2014. Anyway, in Christmas of 2013, we have the events of Iron Man 3 with the fake Mandarin and a cheesy Mandarin. The fake Mandarin being Ben Kingsley and the cheesy one being Guy Pearce. We get the real Mandarin in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which we'll get to after the blip. But yeah. Except for the Mandarin twist that they pulled, where Trevor Slattery, Ben Kingsley's character, is not actually the real Mandarin, because they were setting him up to be the Mandarin, and then it's like, oh no, I'm just an actor. They paid me to play the role of a terrorist. I don't use actual weapons. I'm just kind of here for the money and drugs. I thought that was stupid, but I thought the movie itself was really good. I like the Iron Patriot paint job on the War Machine armor. I like how Tony. This is the first time I noticed a change in Tony Stark, where he's starting to be a little bit more responsible. Maybe responsible is not the right word, but anyway, character growth. There we go. We'll say character growth. This is the first time I noticed character growth in Tony Stark, because not only does he get rid of the arc reactor because he gets all the shrapnel out of him, he also decides, screw it, it's Christmas. Blow up all of my suits, Jarvis. He blows up all of his suits for Pepper to try and make amends for getting her in the sticky situation that she's in the movie. Yeah. Go. We'll get back to the Thor stuff later. Following the events of Iron Man 3 with the Extremis thing that Aldrich Killian, Guy Pearce, created, we have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1, also set, I believe, in early early 2020 or 2014, which means we need to talk about the Wolverine first, because Wolverine is set in 2013, to my knowledge. I know it came out in 2013. I went to go see it with my cousin, or my estranged cousin. But anyway, assuming this takes place in 2013, we need to talk about this real quick before we continue into 2014. In this, Wolverine goes to Tokyo, meets up with Mariko and I think a version of Yukio, and Mr. Yoshida, who he helped save from the atom bomb that bombed, I believe, either Hiroshima or Nagasaki. I forget which one it was, or which atom bomb explosion was featured here. And Madam Viper takes away Wolverine's healing powers to give them to Mr. Yoshida to try and heal him. And I think this is a really, really solid Wolverine movie. Either the extended cut or the regular cut, both are really good, I think. I personally thoroughly enjoy both versions. And kicking off 2014 is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1, set after the events of Iron Man 3, which would make it set in early 2014 before we go. Oh, and I need to back up again. In 2012, as I mentioned, is also The Amazing Spider-Man 1. I like the unique suit design here with the dark lenses on the mask, as well as having more blue on the gloves. It's a very unique, very cool Spider-Man costume. We'll get to Amazing Spider-Man 2 in a second when we talk about 2014 a little bit more, but I believe this one happens first. Also, Amazing Spider-Man 1 is set before the Battle of New York, I feel like. Anyway, Battle of New York being the big final battle of the Avengers. The first one, that is. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. introduces some of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that we're going to be following for the duration of the series. With in Season 1 and most of Season 2, they call her Skye, but you find out I think mid-Season 2 that her name is actually Daisy Johnson. And we follow Agent Grant Ward, who's kind of an awesome guy at first, like, oh, this guy's so cool type guy. Phil Coulson, presumed dead in the battle or before the Battle of New York, brought back with Kree blood. Agent May kind of keeping Agent Coulson in check, or checking in on him from time to time, seeing how his body responds to the Kree blood that resurrected him. And then we have Agents Fitz and Simmons here, and they go on 22 thrilling adventures. And I believe partway through the season is when Captain America: The Winter Soldier would take place, because I believe right at the end of the season, S.H.I.E.L.D. falls and it's revealed that Hydra has been growing inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. the entire time. And before we talk about Captain America: The Winter Soldier here, we're going to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which would be set in 2014, leading up to the events of Captain America: The Winter Soldier in the 616 universe. However, this one's in the TASMverse, obviously. TASMverse again meaning the Amazing Spider-Man universe. And I personally liked how Electro was portrayed here. I thought the blue made him look like how he did in Ultimate Spider-Man, and I love that cartoon. Green Goblin, the guy they got to play the Green Goblin in this, Dane DeHaan, looked like a goblin to begin with. They kind of teased the Rhino at the end with Alexei Singh Savage getting a mechanized Rhino suit. We got a proper Rhino in Kraven, which we'll talk about later. Again, post blip. The blip, if you're not familiar with what I mean by the blip, that's what happened when Thanos snapped his fingers with the Infinity Stones. It's the time between 2018 and let's see, 5 years later, that'd be 2023, is known as the blip, where half of all living creatures in the 616 universe were dust from Thanos. That is the blip. Anyway, back to this one. And this one also kind of teased Black Cat showing up because Felicia Hardy was in this, played by one. What's her name? Oh, come on. Why am I? Felicity Jones, I think. Is that her name? Anyway, tease the Black Cat showing up. That's what I was getting at. Anyway, moving on. Back to the 616 Sacred Timeline universe, we have Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Shield has now fallen, and Hydra has been exposed like a nerve. And hey, Cap, remember your friend Bucky who allegedly died in World War II? Surprise, he's alive. He's the Winter Soldier. Surprise! I love Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It's such a good movie. I just think that's a fun twist because it's like, oh, hey, your best friend from the previous movie is now your worst enemy, or one of your worst enemies, at least, working for the bad guys. Also, both, or technically 3 more things that are set in 2014. I only have 2 of them. I don't think one of them exists on DVD yet, and that, but I'm gonna mention it here because they're just short little fun, adorable scenario things. And that is Guardians of the Galaxy Volumes 1 and 2. Both are set in 2014, I think about a month or 2 apart. Although this one came out in 2017, this one actually came out in 2014. So they came out 3 years apart, but they're set maybe 1 or 2 months in between. I thoroughly enjoyed both of these. James Gunn and Kevin Feige did a remarkable job making these. From what I've heard from Sean Chandler, the Guardians of the Galaxy were like D or E list superheroes at the time these came up, and now they're in the A list. And household names for sure. I personally like both movies. I thought the Sovereign using like arcade games as their ships was really funny. I thought Taserface being made fun of was hilarious. I thought Ego was a little underdeveloped. I think they could have done a little bit better building him up as a bad guy right off the get-go. But they wanted it to be like a shocking twist reveal, and it was. And then in 2015, we have the events of Avengers Age of Ultron. And here we get a second version of Quicksilver. Remember, we had one back in the 20th century with the 10,005 universe. This one's in the official 616, played by one Aaron Taylor Johnson, who will be showing up again as Kraven the Hunter. And we also have the introduction of one of my favorite female Marvel heroes, the Scarlet Witch. She's also in here as Quicksilver's twin sister. And what's really funny about that dynamic is that Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Taylor Johnson, just a year before this movie came out, played a married couple in Godzilla 2014. And then they go to play twins here. It's like, what are we doing here? These guys just played a married couple, and now they're twins? What? Awkward. Great movie. Both Godzilla 2014 and Age of Ultron are great movies in my mind. It's just really funny how that ended up playing out with twins being cast as a married couple. That's I don't know. It tickles my funny bone. It's hilarious, I think. Moving on, we have also in 2015 Ant-Man 1, and this is a much smaller scale heist movie, much lower stakes, intentionally lower stakes. That's part of its charm. And Paul Rudd's hilarious. Michael Pena, he's hilarious. Michael Douglas has some funny moments to himself, and I just really, really enjoy Ant-Man, the Ant-Man 1, personally. I believe also set in 2015. Yes, also set in 2015. We have a alternate universe for the Fantastic Four in Fant Four Stick, and the committee members at 20th Century Fox really butchered this movie. Supposedly there's a version of this movie that is amazing. This isn't it. This one's mediocre at best. And then following up Captain America's Winter Soldier in the 616 adjacent universe, because for some reason Disney Plus does not count Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as MCU canon, nor does it count Agent Carter as MCU canon, even though they're both clearly set in the 616 universe. We have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2, where Hydra is beginning to cause a lot of problems for our agents. Grant Ward is one of such Hydra agent that was revealed to be a real piece of scum. He's a scumbag. He's a bad, bad man. We introduce a few new agents here, like Agent Mac, who's this awesome, muscular black man. Love Agent Mac. He's great. We also get Agent Bobby Morse and Lance Hunter, who apparently used to be married and they got divorced because of personality qualms. And yeah, so this is another. How many episodes is this one? Another 22 thrilling stories here. Fun stuff. I personally enjoy it. And it's almost time to talk about Thor Ragnarok. But first, we have to cover Captain America Civil War. And Loki tried to defeat the Avengers with an army of aliens. Ultron tried and failed. Ultron tried to defeat the Avengers with an army of robots and failed. And then Baron Zemo tried to defeat the Avengers by tearing them apart from the inside using a red book, and he succeeded, which ended up leading to Thanos winning in Avengers Infinity War. But that all started right here with the Avengers breaking up like a band, as Hulk points out. Broke up like a band, like the Beatles. I don't think I've ever heard a Beatles song personally. Just putting that out there. Shortly after the events of Captain America Civil War, even though it came out like 5 or 6 years later, 5 years later, and is superficially part of the Multiverse Saga, even though it's set during the Infinity Saga. We have Black Widow, and this, I want to see a Captain America movie where they kind of cover this same time period where Captain America's on the run, um, and I believe goes as Nomad. I would love to see a Nomad Avengers type project with Chris Evans, Captain America being Nomad. But here we get to see what Black Widow was going through in between Infinity War and Civil War, and we meet her, or we are reintroduced to her sister Elena Belova. Uh, Elena initially shows up in Hawkeye, set in I think Christmas 2023 or 2024, something like that. I don't personally own that particular show yet. I do want it though. I loved Hawkeye. I thought that was a great show. But I don't have it yet. But that's where they technically introduce both Valentina Allegra de Fontaine and Elena, and then as far as chronological order, this would be the first time that we meet Elena, because this is set in 2016 or 2017 thereabouts, with Natasha on the run trying to avoid Thunderbolt Ross, and we meet her fake family, including the Red Guardian, who's, I think, a great comedic relief character, because David Harbour can be one heck of a funny guy. Like he's awesome. When he's in comedy mode, top tier. I also love him in Thunderbolts. I also don't have Thunderbolts yet, so I can't really include that in my personal timeline here. But as soon as I buy it, I'll be putting it in this timeline and doing this video. Real quick before we talk about Thor Ragnarok, we have 2 more titles to cover first. Actually 3. And they are Deadpool, set in the 10,005 universe. This is Deadpool 1, I should say. And I'm really glad that somebody leaked test footage of this movie. I'm predicting that it was Ryan Reynolds. I don't know that for a fact, but it seems like something he would do. And I'm glad that ended up happening because I love Deadpool. I think Deadpool 1, 2, and 3 are all really good movies. Of course, Deadpool and Wolverine would take the cake as what I think the best Deadpool movie is, because I like the multiverse stuff, I like the TVA stuff, I like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine being in a comic accurate costume for once. They did tease that costume in The Wolverine, but they never got him to wear it in 20th Century Fox. So he wore it in the MCU, which is really cool, really special. But this kind of laid the groundwork for that to begin. We'll get to Logan and Deadpool 2 later in the timeline. The timeline gets a little bit messy when we get to the Venom trilogy, because supposedly they all take place within a year of each other. Like, you have the first event, and then like half a year later you have Venom Let There Be Carnage, and then a year after the original takes place you have supposedly Venom The Last Dance. I don't think that's actually accurate at all, because at the end of Let There Be Carnage, Venom goes to the MCU, which at that point would be 2024, and then he goes back to his own universe, which could, I guess, be technically 2018, like mid 2018, I guess. But and then in No Way Home, or actually in No Way Home, he gets sent back to his own universe, and that carries over into Venom: The Last Dance, where he goes back from the MCU to his own universe again. And so for that reason, I have them taking place in different years, not all in one year from 2018 to 19. I just don't think that's the case. That is what you call a tangent. let's try and get back on track here. Taking place next is Doctor Strange. This is the first Doctor Strange 1, let me specify. And Benedict Cumberbatch nails it as Doctor Strange. Benedict Wong does really good as Wong. I believe Tilda Swinton is the Ancient One. She does a remarkable job. Rachel McAdams does a great job as the love interest, Christine Palmer. I don't know how this guy's name is pronounced, so I'm just going to show it. That guy does really good as Mordo, Baron Mordo. I thought Caecilius was a good villain, maybe slightly underutilized. Dormammu looked really cool, but didn't have a whole lot of substance other than Dormammu, I've come to bargain. You've come to die. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. Anyway, I'm actually not sure which one takes place next, Spider-Man Homecoming or Thor Ragnarok. We'll go ahead and talk about Spider-Man Homecoming next, because I think it's set slightly before Ragnarok. So this one, the title kind of has a double meaning, because while Spider-Man was in Captain America: The Civil War, this is technically Spider-Man's homecoming to the MCU. Again, he was in Civil War, that's in the MCU, but this was his first his first solo movie in the MCU. I put the air quotes because Iron Man shows up and helps him out several times. But great Spider-Man movie. Tom Holland actually looks like a high schooler, even though he's, I think, a year or two older than I am. I think he's 27, 28, something like that. He looks like a high schooler. I like all three different actors for Spider-Man for different reasons. I like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man in the costume. I like Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker. And Tom Holland is the best of both worlds. I think he does great as awkward, nerdy Peter Parker. And I think he does great as Spider-Man. So I really like all three Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, and I'm super excited for Brand New Day. But I can't talk about that one because it doesn't even exist yet. It's in the process of becoming a thing right now. But leading up to the events of Avengers Infinity War, we have three titles to talk about before we get to the Infinity War event. And they are Thor Ragnarok, easily the best of the Thor movies. It is a bit silly at times, but it doesn't overdo the silliness. Love and Thunder. And Love and Thunder does. That's what that was about. Obviously, this is not the Cinematic Universe edition. Neither are any of my Iron Man trilogies or the other two Thor movies. Or these other two Thor movies, because there are 4 Thor movies. 4 really sucks. But yeah. Thor Ragnarok is awesome. Doctor Strange is in it for a little bit in the beginning. One of my favorite lines is delivered by Loki. I've been falling for 30 minutes. I said it just like Loki too. I'm so good at impressions. I'm sorry. I love my impression skills. I think it's top tier. And then another thing leading up to Infinity War, we have Black Panther. Black Panther was in Captain America: Civil War, which is awesome. I don't think I mentioned that when I talked about Civil War. But this introduces Wakanda itself and how awesome that environment is and how advanced their technology is with the vibranium. Killmonger is in here, as well as Ulysses Claw from Age of Ultron. now he has a vibranium hand cannon thing where his arm was severed by Ultron. And I just really love this. It's very much a political movie, but I thoroughly, thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy this. I wish Chadwick Boseman was still around to be able to play Black Panther more. He tragically passed away while they were filming Wakanda Forever from some sort of cancer, I believe. But I wish he was still around to play this role. He did so good in the role. Great movie. And the last thing that happens, kind of at the same exact time that Infinity War is happening, is Ant-Man and the Wasp, or Ant-Man 2 with the lenticular slipcover. Love them lenticular slipcovers. Anyway, Ant-Man 2. Again, this one's a really small stakes type movie. It came out after Infinity War, but is set during Infinity War. In fact, the post-credit scene shows Hank Pym, Janet Van Dyne, and Wasp becoming dust, unable to retrieve Scott Lang from the quantum realm, which is why he's not in Avengers Infinity War, because he was stuck in the quantum realm doing his own thing under house arrest, just like Hawkeye, Agent Barton, Hawkeye, not Hot Guy. A lot of people mispronounce Hawk, or when I say Hawkeye, they're like, "You think Jeremy Renner's a hot guy?" And I'm like, "No, I mean, he's not that bad looking. No, but I anyway, Hawkeye, his superhero name. So for that reason, I've started referring to him as Agent Barton or Clint Barton. And then here comes Thanos. We have Avengers Infinity War. Hulk is only in like the first 10 minutes because he gets his butt handed to him by Thanos and refuses to show up again until Avengers Endgame. And this is technically the last time we see a proper Hulk, because, I mean, Smart Hulk's fun and all that, but I like Rage Monster Hulk. This is the last time we technically see him for about 10 minutes, if even that. And then hopping over to another universe that we're just going to call the Venomverse for the Venom trilogy and Morbius. We have Venom 2018, I believe set in 2018. Riot is a really cool villain. He does the same thing that Venom does, but he has to censor a Venom quote from Venom himself, or the symbiote. Riot has the S word that you have never seen, to which Eddie Brock responds, "F it, let's save the world." Again, I censored that line, though. And then set also in 2018, I believe, in an alternate universe, which I believe is the Ultimates universe, we have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This is a great animated movie. It's a great Spider-Man movie. It's a great Miles Morales Spider-Man movie. It's just a great movie in general. As is set in 2019, a year later, during the blip, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And this one takes place in a bunch of different universes, including one where Spider-Man is from India, which I thought is actually pretty cool. Another one where, or if they don't go to this universe, but there's another universe where Spider-Man's a punk rocker. They call him Spider-Punk. And Spider-Punk is pretty cool in this movie. Then there's a bunch of other ones like Miguel O'Hara, 2099 Spider-Man. It has the original 1960s Spider-Man showing up here. The Spectacular Spider-Man shows up here. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, when he's crying over Uncle Ben's dead body, shows up here. What's the name? What's the guy's name? I believe Danny Glover shows up again as the Prowler from the MCU universe, being trapped in Miguel O'Hara's universe, which I think is pretty cool. And it made me really hope that they have the Prowler in Spider-Man Brand New Day or one of the other Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, because it looked like a really good design. And I would hate for him to just waste it on that one scene and be like, yeah, we're never going to see that again. And then that will bring us to Avengers Endgame, which ends the blip, bringing back half of all the living creatures in the universe, including Groot, which is very important. Oh, something I forgot to mention with 2014, I Am Groot. There are 2 seasons of I Am Groot where they don't really impact anything. They're just adorable Groot stories, and I count them in the timeline because so does Disney Plus. Although for some reason, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man and X-Men 97 are not included in the MCU timeline, even though they are Marvel Studios properties. I don't understand why. I mean, What If is set and Marvel Zombies is in the official MCU? Why are those 2 excluded from it? I don't know. Then again, I'm still wanting Disney Plus to put the Marvel properties in a multiversal timeline like I am right now. But yeah, Avengers Endgame, great movie. It's a 3-hour movie that doesn't feel like it takes 3 hours to watch because it's wildly entertaining from beginning to end. And if you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, what are you doing with your life? Check it out. And watch all the other previous movies that I've already mentioned up to this point that are MCU 616 as well. Because otherwise, this won't make sense to you. But definitely check this out if for some reason you haven't. Jumping back to 2012, we have a variant of Loki in his title sequence. I say jumping back to 2012 because a 2012 variant of Loki during the time heist in Avengers Endgame steals the Tesseract and disappears into his own solo adventure, where he meets a female version of himself as well as an alligator version of himself, a child version of himself, an old man version of himself, and one that likes to brag. But Loki season 1 is technically set, I believe, in 2012, following the events of him disappearing with the Tesseract in Endgame. I believe season 2 is set after Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I don't have season 2, but I am going to reference it when we get to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But for now, we're going to move on to one of my top 2 favorite live action Marvel MCU shows, and that is WandaVision. I've watched WandaVision from beginning to end 12 times now. I thoroughly love and enjoy WandaVision. I like that she becomes a Scarlet Witch in the end, how she has kind of a redemptive arc from holding an entire town hostage, which ends up getting ignored in Multiverse of Madness, sadly. But great, great show. I love it so much. The song Agatha All Along is definitely an earworm where it gets stuck in your head. But I'm okay with that because I love that song. It just annoys the rest of my family when it ends up being stuck in my head. Oh, shoot. Going back in time a bit, because I forgot these were over here. We have, we'll talk about these shows in their entireties. For these 5 shows, there's also 2 movies that aren't technically Marvel at all, but I count them as Marvel because one of them is called Valentine, the Dark Avenger. being the connective tissue with the Marvel stuff, although it has no connection to Marvel, neither does Rendell Dark Vengeance, but just the name Avenger in the title made me think, oh, hey, I should include that in my Marvel universe. But set in 2017, I believe, or 2016, 2018, and 2019, respectively. We have all 3 seasons of Jessica Jones. I've seen the first 2 seasons. I thought they were both really good. I haven't watched season 3 yet. I only have season 1 in my personal collection, but but both of the first 2 seasons are really good. I expect that season 3 is just as good. I just haven't watched it quite yet. And my multiversal watch through is I'm taking way too long watching through things. We'll just put it that way. I need to set these here for a moment. And then I only have the 2nd season of Daredevil. But this one takes place in 2015, I believe 16 and 18. The reason none of the Marvel Netflix shows take place in 2017 with the individual characters like Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Daredevil, and Jessica Jones, or Punisher, is because at least 4 of them, minus Punisher, had a crossover called The Defenders in 2017. So none of the individual shows associated with the Defenders characters had a season in 2017. But I believe this season was set in 2016. It introduces Punisher into the mix, and Daredevil very appropriately asks him in a very inappropriate way, "Are you effing crazy?" Which is the only F-bomb in any of these Netflix series. And then one I think is set in 2017 as well is an X-Men show, The Gifted, and I just found out this only has 2 seasons. I thought it had 3, so I need to close, I think, 5 gaps or just 3, something like that, in my case, because they'll never be filled by a season of a show that doesn't exist. I thought that much like this series, Legion, that The Gifted would have 3 seasons. This one has 3 seasons. That one only has 2. And I think this one's actually technically set in the future, like in the 2020s or 20-somethings, like maybe the 2030s or something like that. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to pretend that it's set in 2017 as well. It's about a schizophrenic relative of Charles Xavier that's in a mental institution with his love, or with a girl he is in love with right here. And I think this is a really good show. I've only seen the first season because I own it. I've only seen 1 episode of The Gifted from season 1. I saw the pilot episode. Then these 2 movies aren't technically Marvel properties, but again, it says Avenger right there, so I count them as Marvel movies for that reason. And that is Rendell Dark Vengeance and Valentine the Dark Avenger. And I have them set in 2018 and 19 respectively. After and the other before. Okay. And then the last of the Marvel Netflix shows that I have a copy of one of them in also has 2 seasons, and that is Luke Cage. I've seen both seasons. They're both really good. A great great black superhero played by an extremely dark black skinned actor who does a remarkable and phenomenal job as the title character Luke Cage. And if you don't know who Luke Cage is, if you've seen the Ultimate Spider-Man show, you know who Luke Cage is, you just don't realize it. Luke Cage is Power Man from the Ultimate Spider-Man show. This is just a much more adult, grown-up, mature version. Hence, it's in a TVMA project from Netflix. And honestly, I think it would probably pass as a PG-13. Not gonna lie. They just use the S word a lot, but you see that in PG-13s too. So there you go. It is a little too violent for a PG-13, so I guess it would make sense, the most sense to have it be rated R. But great show. I have seen the entirety of Daredevil, the original Netflix series, and that was really good. I'm kind of just collecting myself here. Actually, set those there. I'm gonna move all this over to here, and then I'm gonna set these right there. And they're set in, I believe, 2020 or late 2023, maybe October, November, September, thereabouts. We have Shang-Chi and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. It's so easy to say Shang-Chi instead of Shang. But Shang-Chi, and this gives us the real Mandarin, and Trevor Slattery shows up again, as does the Abomination from the Incredible Hulk, which is really cool. I don't have She-Hulk yet, so I can't include that in my timeline, but it is in the Disney Plus timeline and the MCU's timeline, so it does exist. I just don't have it yet. Excuse me. Simu Limu and Aquafina both do really good jobs as Shang-Chi and his best friend, Katie something or other. I don't remember what Katie's character's last name is. I don't know if they ever actually say it, but they both do a very, very good job in this movie. And I'm so looking forward to when they finally give us Shang-Chi 2. Moving on, again, shortly after the blip, we have the Falcon and the Winter Soldier with kind of Captain America with John Walker, and then the true new Captain America. Technically, he'd be Captain America 3 because John Walker was Captain America 2, or the second Captain America, I mean. I would still love to see Sebastian Stan's Bucky take up the mantle of Captain America whenever, maybe Sam Wilson here will pass the mantle on to Bucky when he decides to not be Captain America anymore for himself. I think that would be pretty cool and fitting because there are times in the cartoons and the comics when Bucky Barnes is Captain America. So I think I would love to see that in the MCU. But I want to see more of Sam Wilson Captain America first before they do that. Great show. In late 2023, I believe, is Spider-Man Far From Home. It was released as part of the Infinity Saga, but set kind of during the where it takes place in the timeline itself is very much in the Multi-verse Saga portion of the timeline. So we have Spider-Man Far From Home. Jake Gyllenhaal does a great job as Mysterio. We have Sam Jackson back as Nick Fury, Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan, Zendaya as Michelle Jones Watson, or just Michelle Jones. She doesn't go by Watson. And I really like this movie. I think it's really good. It set up Spider-Man No Way Home, which until Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse came out was my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time, and now it's very much tied with Across the Spider-Verse for movies that actually have Spider-Man in it. And then in the beginning of 2024, set in early 2024, we have the Eternals, which they didn't really touch again reference again until What If. And as far as the proper 616 universe is concerned, they didn't touch the events of this movie again until Captain America 4, aka Brave New World. So, the Eternals. The way this movie ends is they have a celestial being emerging from inside the earth, and he gets turned into adamantium. That isn't referenced again until Brave New World, which I do have, so we'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Moving on, still set in 2024, maybe like mid 2024 or summer 2024 thereabouts. We have Spider-Man No Way Home. I brought up the Blu-ray case because I like the slipcover for that just a little bit better than the 4K one or design that they went for. I do like the way that Spider-Man and Doctor Strange are coming out of the portal like that, or standing with a portal behind them at least. And my gosh, this movie was amazing. When I first went to go see it in theaters, it had already been out for like a month or two, I think. And when I went to go see this, when Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield show up in those portal sequences, the entire theater, myself included, lost their minds and was like, yes, that's awesome, woohoo, type thing going on. Of course, the other Spider-Man franchise villains like Electro, Dr. Octopus, Sandman, Lizard, Green Goblin, those guys showing up was also really awesome and got standing ovations for in the theater I went to go see it in, as did Toby and Andrew. They got standing ovations as well. I was surprised that Sandman got a standing ovation because not a lot of people like Spider-Man 3, but apparently they like Sandman. So there you go. Actually, this happens before No Way Home. Set just before leading up to Spider-Man No Way Home, we have Venom Let There Be Carnage, where Venom goes from allegedly mid 2018, or like the middle of 2018, to 2024 in No Way Home, where he's in the MCU because Venom himself, the symbiote, knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man and is not friends or in a relationship or a family member of Spider-Man. So he knows. So Venom, the symbiote itself, knows Peter Parker Spider-Man. Hence, he goes to the MCU because he's not Spider-Man's best friend. He's not Spider-Man's girlfriend. He's not Spider-Man's family members. Therefore, he can come to the MCU. Unlike Harry Osborn, Mary Jane Watson, and Gwen Stacy, because they were either love interests or Harry Osborn from the TASMverse. The Raimiverse and TASMverse. Harry Osborn not invited because they are friends of Spider-Man. Anyways, this one is set before this one, technically, leading up to it, where Venom goes to the MCU. In this, Venom is sent back to his own universe. And we'll get back to that shortly. But first, we have Morbius with a cool lenticular cover. That looks awesome. 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 Anyways, I'm just having fun there. This is also a pretty cool design here. But I thought this movie was really good. It had a Venom reference, which makes me think that Morbius is in the same universe alongside Tom Hardy's Venom, because at one point he says, "I am Venom," and he pulls out this kind of like vampire-looking face when he says Venom to scare the crap out of a homeless guy. And I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was pretty good. And Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming shows up at the end of this. He's like, I'm not sure how I got here, but I think it has something to do with Spider-Man. And you can tell, like, Morbius is like, who the heck is Spider-Man, dude? Because his universe doesn't have a Spider-Man for some reason. I don't know what Sony was doing with those, but most of them, except for Madam Web, I thought were really good. And shortly after the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I wish there was more multiverse in Multiverse of Madness. They really only spend time in the main 616, the 838, and whatever universe designation they gave Sinister Strange's universe that was collapsing in on itself. I wish they had spent more time in other universes than just those three, but they didn't, which is sad and dumb. But I don't think the movie itself is dumb. I just think it's dumb that they didn't really go to more than just three universes for the duration of the runtime. The Scarlet Witch is overpowered here. I don't think she's dead, personally. According to Agatha all along, she is dead, but I don't think she's personally dead. I personally don't think she is dead, because when that Darkhold building crumbled on top of her, you see a flash of red light as if she teleported away safely. So I think she's still very much alive and just presumed dead. Or like maybe she teleported to another universe or started dreamwalking or something, because she may have remembered how to do that. And so maybe the 616 version is dead, but we'll see. Set in late 2024, early 2025, I think, we have Moon Knight Season 1. I thought it was a pretty good show. I got the fancy Steelbook version. Normally I would open up and show, ooh, Steelbook, but I'm not going to do that when I'm just going through the timeline and what multiversal order to watch these titles in. I'm not going to do it this time around. I will do it next time I show this title, I promise. Okay. And actually, you can see what the inside of the Steelbook looks like right here. It shows it. And it's basically this design on the inside. And I want to double check to make sure that's true. Yeah, it is. And there are pictures inside here from the show, either from the development process or actually from the show itself. And I think that's pretty cool that it has concept art cards. I guess they're all concept art. My bad. But I personally really enjoyed this this show. I'm looking forward to a season 2. I'm glad this says complete first season and not complete series like WandaVision does, because I want more WandaVision. Because I loved WandaVision a lot. And the sticker on this case needs to either stay down or be safely peeled off completely, because it keeps getting caught on other cases, and that's annoying. And that is Black Panther Wakanda Forever, set sometime in 2025, I think, maybe 2026. I'm not entirely certain, but I think Shuri does a really good job taking up the mantle of Black Panther after the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman, which I talked about earlier. Chadwick Boseman is a very great actor in the MCU. I wish he was still alive to be able to continue playing the Black Panther character, but I hope he's at least resting in peace, because he was a great actor. But Shuri does a good job taking up the mantle of Black Panther. It's revealed that T'Challa has a son, T'Challa Jr. I hope he takes up the mantle of Black Panther as well in future events. But right now he's maybe like 5 or 6. And then what I think is the only bad MCU movie is Thor: Love and Thunder. Such a big letdown. It got way too humorous, way too much humor in this thing, and it really kind of bogged down the movie and made it a lot worse than it would have otherwise been. If they had copied the same amount of humor they had in Ragnarok, it would be a great movie, but as is, it is terrible. I say it's the only bad MCU movie because, in my mind, the only bad MCU show was Secret Invasion. I think it started off strong, and then it kind of fizzled out, but mid-season. I don't have it yet. I don't know if it exists on physical copies or physical disc yet. I will end up buying it when it comes out officially because I'm a completionist and I want to have the entire MCU, whether I like the projects or not, because it's the MCU and I want it all. Up next in the timeline, sometime in 2025 or 2026, I'm not really sure when exactly it takes place, but we have Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantum Mania, or Ant-Man 3. The only problem I have with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantum Mania is how Kang the Conqueror, he was supposed to be the big bad of the multiverse saga like Thanos was for the Infinity Saga, and he gets defeated by ants. I think that's really stupid, but I liked almost everything else in this movie. MODOK, I kind of have a problem with how they did MODOK as well, I guess. But it's not as big a problem as the big bad of the multiverse saga being defeated by ants. I think that was just so poorly handled. Before we talk about this, I'm going to mention the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which I just rewatched a couple days ago. And that is such a good holiday special. It's funny. It's funny from beginning to end. I laughed quite a bit during the entire runtime of the movie. Or holiday special, not really a movie, I guess. But I laughed at several moments from beginning to end in that. I thought it was really funny how repulsed Mantis and I overdid it. How repulsed Mantis and Drax were by the fact that Kevin Bacon is an actor. You're like, ugh, we just got Quill a actor for Christmas. Actors are repugnant, said, as spoken from a couple of actors themselves. Sorry, my finger's bleeding a bit because I bit off a little bit too much dead skin. Anyway, just gonna go like this. Yeah, it's still bleeding. Anyway, I'm gonna start using my left hand because I have a little bit of a cut on my on my pinky here, and I don't want to get blood on my movie cases here. But again, unclear when it actually takes place. I assume 2025, 2026, somewhere in there. We have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This had the MCU's first F-bomb in it. Star-Lord tells Nebula to open the effing door when with his first attempt at driving a car. And this is really bleeding a lot. Just trying to get it to stop. And it doesn't look like it's going to stop. Great. Okay, well that's not good. Sorry. I also can't really talk about Miss Marvel because I don't have that, although I do love that show. I thought it was pretty good. But I do have the Marvels. This is not the Cinematic Universe edition. It is an awesome looking steelbook, Irish steelbook at that. And this brings back Photon from WandaVision, aka Monica Rambeau. It brings back Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel herself, and Miss Marvel from her title or from her own series, and they are the titular Marvels. Titular meaning the title characters. At one point, they are called the Marvels, and Captain Marvel's like, "How is that already a thing?" Sorry, that's probably really gross over the camera. Over the audio. That sound, but I'm trying to get this to stop bleeding, and it's not for some reason. Anyway, I personally really thought that this was a pretty good movie. It's 100 minutes, so it's kind of short. I like how Photon got trapped in an X-Men universe. It's unclear if it's the 10,005 universe or not, but it is a X-Men universe. And her mom is one of the X-Men characters known as Binary. I don't know anything about that character, but I thought that was kind of cool. She was like, "You're my mom," but in that universe, she doesn't have kids or a kid. And then in the Sony Spider-Man adjacent universe, we also have Kraven the Hunter, which I believe is set in 2025 or 2026 as well. Maybe. It's kind of unclear when this one takes place. But in this, we get the Chameleon. We get a proper adaptation of what's the guy's name? The Rhino. My bad. Totally spaced on the Rhino. Don't know how I did that. I love the Rhino, especially this version. And Aaron Taylor Johnson, formerly Quicksilver in the 616 universe, is now Kraven the Hunter, and he is amazing in this role. Apparently, this is the last movie in the Sony Spider-Man adjacent universe, which is kind of sad. But I mean, they don't. That universe doesn't have a particularly good track record, and there are some really corny moments in this movie, like when one of the female lead characters ends up killing one of the bad guys with a bow and arrow, and I think pretty much resurrected version of Kraven is like, well, that must have been one heck of a summer camp, because previously in a previous scene, that same female character was talking about how she went to summer camp one year and learned archery. Sorry, this bleeding is really bothering me. I'm not afraid of seeing blood in front of me. It's just I wish it would stop bleeding because I don't want to make a mess. So that's why it's bothering me, because I don't want to make a mess. You can kind of see there. It's did it actually stop bleeding for that, or is it just, I don't know. Anyway, I have an owie on my pinky. I'm trying not to get blood anywhere. So for that reason, it is bothering me. But I'm not squeamish with blood at all. Case in point, I love horror movies. They're very bloody and gory. I can handle blood. It actually kind of hurts a little bit, my pinky, and it's bleeding. And then I have this one set after Kraven the Hunter. I don't know if it actually is or not, but set sometime after No Way Home, we have Venom: The Last Dance, and I think is a strong conclusion to the Venom trilogy, honestly. I thought it was a pretty good movie. I thought it was cute when Venom danced with Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Chen is a character that you meet in Venom and Let There Be Carnage that runs her own store. In this one, she's partying in Vegas, and Venom dances with her after Eddie Brock gets his foot peed on by some stranger that he steals the suit of, or steals the dress suit of, to sneak into a hotel that's having a formal event going on. And then back in the 10,005 universe, set in like 2025 or 6, something like that, we have the New Mutants. I know it's set before Logan. That one's next in 2029. So maybe this is 2027. I don't know. Anyway, New Mutants, a horror X-Men movie where it has a lot of horror elements, including a demon bear at the end that acting as the final battle. And this is Colossus's sister, or sister-in-law, something like that. And I think she's really cool. I can't remember her character name, but I thought she was awesome. And I personally thought this was a really good movie. I think we initially heard about it when the first Deadpool movie came out, so it was being developed for at least 4 years before they finally released it, and I personally really like it. It favors quite well in an X-Men ranking, for me at least. Okay, looks like it finally stopped bleeding. Hallelujah. And then set in 2029, as I stated just a moment ago, we have Logan. And this one is where a weary Logan is also kind of losing his superpowers of healing because the adamantium on his skeleton has begun to decay and poison him. This is also a very, very depressing movie. And it shows the second out of 3 times that Patrick Stewart's Charles Xavier has been killed. He was killed in X-Men The Last Stand and then came back. He was killed in Multiverse of Madness after this. This showed the second time he was killed, although chronologically it's the 3rd time technically, because Multiverse of Madness would be set before the events of Logan, where he once again gets killed because Wanda snaps his neck. In this, a clone of Logan stabs him in the chest with all 3 of his claws and slowly pulls it out with blood dripping, because it's rated R and very bloody. And then next up, we have 3 different cuts of Deadpool 2. We have the R-rated theatrical cut, the PG-13 theatrical cut, and the unrated super duper cut. All 3 I'm going to say are relevant to the 10,005 universe, as pretty much the same story each time, just this one kind of introduces the story. This one tells it from a PG-13 through a PG-13 window, with Fred Savage being Red Deadpool 2 in a setting that very much looks like his bedroom from A Princess Bride, which is something they point out in the movie, which I also know firsthand because I have seen Princess Bride 1 time. And then we have the super duper cut, which it adds another 15 minutes onto the runtime, and I think it added enough to the story to warrant being a different entry, because it was just different enough to be unique while still being very much Deadpool 2. And then we have, I think, technically jumping back to 2025 or 2026, somewhere in there, we have Deadpool and Wolverine. We finally got a costumed Wolverine. And then Deadpool's costume in this regenerates just like he does, which is awesome. Which is why in the final battle sequence, when they're trying to defeat Cassandra Nova and save the entire multiverse, honestly, why Wolverine's shirt got destroyed when they were doing that, and Deadpool's costume was regenerating just like he was and didn't get destroyed, because it was made of, I think, vibranium, either vibranium or adamantium as well. I think vibranium, because vibranium can regenerate clothing, apparently. But with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, you went from the MCU's first F-bomb to all of the F-bombs, although, albeit, only 20, which is significantly fewer than the previous 2 Deadpools and Logan, which combined had close to 300 F-bombs, and that one only has 20. So it's technically a much safer R rating. It's still very bloody and has sexual innuendos. No nudity, which is good, unless you count a shirtless Wolverine as nudity, which I don't see why you would, because it's Hugh Jackman without a shirt. He is ripped. And then the closing out my timeline here with the MCU, because I don't have Thunderbolts and I don't have Fantastic Four: The First Steps, is Captain America: Brave New World. I thought that the Red Hulk showing up near the end was awesome. I loved that part. I love how Joaquin from or the character Joaquin from Falcon and Winter Soldier shows up as a new Falcon. I loved Sam Wilson as Captain America. I didn't like how they ended up making the leader look, because he's supposed to have like a giant Frankenstein head. And this, they just gave him a grotesque looking head with one of his eyes kind of blown, which looked more creepy, which is kind of a creepy character. They played him in a very creepy way, so it fit the character that they gave us, but I would have liked a more comic accurate design that they were originally going to go for, that they teased all the way back in The Incredible Hulk. Speaking of returning characters, other than the leader, we also have Betty Ross show up to talk to her now Harrison Ford. Thaddeus Ross, her dad, who is now the ex-president because he had to leave I think he resigned as president after hulking out like this. And I wasn't sure when I saw the trailers if the flames going on around the Red Hulk were because he got hotter, or like his temperature increased, physically got hotter, not more attractive, hotter, like hot, that kind of hot. Or because he was people shooting like missiles and whatnot or rockets at him, and I was thoroughly pleasantly surprised that it actually was the Hulk or the Red Hulk's body temperature causing the flames, because where regular Hulk Bruce Banner gets stronger and larger the madder he gets, the Red Hulk, his temperature and radioactivity gets more and more unstable, and he's kind of like Anger in Inside Out 1 and 2, where the madder Anger gets, he'll blow his top like a volcano. Technically, the Red Hulk would do something similar-ish. He would just like burn hotter and hotter and hotter the madder he becomes. And they did that in this, where it showed where for no missiles or anything were shot at him, and he burned off his clothes when he became the Red Hulk, except for his pants. You can kind of see that he burned his pants too, but for decency's sake, he does still have his pants on. But he destroyed a part of the White House in a fiery explosion type thing when he lost control of his rage, and his handprint was kind of burning the platform that he was standing on, or not really standing on at that point because he was trying to get back up onto his feet after hulking out. But the platform that Thaddeus Ross or President Ross was standing on, he ended up burning that with his hand when he first hulked out. You see his red hand show up, and it starts to burn the wood of the platform or the destroyed stage that he was standing on previously. And then and then I think it even showed like a slight burn mark on Cap's shield from Red Hulk getting really, really mad. And I thought that was handled so well. I thought it was awesome. The only criticism I have is how they changed the way the leader looks to looking more grotesque instead of Frankenstein's monstery or monster-esque. But yeah, I will give a few real quick thoughts on Thunderbolts, which is set after Brave New World, as well as Fantastic Four: The First Steps. And Thunderbolts is kind of a depression character study type situation where they study a lot of depressed characters like Elena Belova, Sentry, or Bob. Bob! It's just Bob. I thought Bob was funny. I was kind of trying to reference the Thunderbolts movie. Bob. You say he has a guy named Bob with him? Bob, yes! We've been telling you about Bob, Bucky. Come on now. It's funny. Anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed Thunderbolts. I thought it was a great movie. I like how they're the Avengers with a Z. Avengers, in other words. And I how it wasn't afraid to talk about depression type stuff with very broken and depressed characters. And that movie, switching tracks to Fantastic Four: The First Steps, I thought once again Marvel Studios did a phenomenal job with the movie. The lead characters that play Mr. Fantastic, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, and the Thing. I thought all four of them did a fabulous, fabulous job as their respective characters. I like how we got a proper Galactus in this one, where he's this giant monster thing, or this giant monstrous, huge, upscaled human type character. And personally, I thought that the female Silver Surfer was just as effective as the male version with Norrin Rad. I forget what her name actually was. I want to say like Sheila or something. I don't know. Anyway, I liked her version just as much as I liked Lawrence Fishburne voicing the original Silver Surfer with the Chris Evans Captain America or Human Torch era of Fantastic Four movies. And I thought, because I've seen comics where the Silver Surfer is a woman. I think Shala Bal, that's what her name is. I didn't mind Shala Bal as the Silver Surfer. I thought, hey, this is really cool. Give a woman a lot of awesome cosmic powers. Yes, I'm all for it. I think female superhero movies are great. Case in point, even though it has a lot of glaring issues, I thoroughly enjoy Black Widow. It has issues being part of the Multiverse Saga instead of the Infinity Saga because it came out 5 years too late. But I thought they did a good job. They kind of did Taskmaster a little dirty, and then they kill her off in. That's one thing they got. That's one area where I don't like a female version of the character, and that is with Taskmaster. I thought having a female Taskmaster, the way they used her in Black Widow was really lazy. They just used it for Avenger cameo type stuff, or Avenger power cameos, I should say. And that's just lazy and dumb, I think. And then they kill her pretty early on in Thunderbolts, which I thought was kind of dumb. I would have liked her to be in the duration of Thunderbolts, but Ghost kills her pretty early on, which technically isn't even supposed to be possible because Taskmaster, based on the comics and cartoons that he's appeared in, like Ultimate Spider-Man and the Spider-Man PS4 game, Taskmaster can copy the moves of anything he sees. He has he has what I think they call them photographic reflexes. He sees something even just once, and he can masterfully replicate it. Hence, Taskmaster. They never really did that with the MCU. I hope that after the soft reboot of the MCU, they bring back a version of Taskmaster, whether it's the female version, because it kind of started to grow on me right when they killed her off. It's like, really? Just when the character's starting to grow on me, you kill her? Come on. But if they bring back that version, it'd be great. If they brought back a male version, like most of the cartoon and comic counterparts are, that would be great. If they brought back both and had the two go head to head, that would be amazing. I would love that so much. But I need to go ahead and end this video here. We're at just over 2 hours, and this will cut me off if I go to 2.5. So I'm going to end this right here. If you enjoyed this movie, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And hopefully you found this video very informative as to the proper multiversal way to watch all your Marvel movies. Some people might only watch the ones that are MCU proper and a few of the X-Men movies, like Deadpool, Logan, Deadpool 2, the original X-Men trilogy, First Class, and Days of Future Past. Some might stick to those. Some others might include New Mutants, might not. But now you know the multiversal timeline in its entirety over here. And now you know the proper way to watch the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse timeline. You're welcome. Catch you in the next video. Keep talking movies too much.